Best movies of 2026. So far, you can't miss something interesting is happening with movies this year. Several releases arrive with familiar setups, yet the experience feels more personal once the story unfolds. A few films look large on the surface, though what stays with you is quieter, more human, and sometimes unexpected. 2026 has already delivered a strong mix of crime thrillers, science fiction, survival stories, and character-focused blockbusters. Viewers searching for films that feel worth their time will notice that the year's most memorable releases rely on clear ideas and confident storytelling. These are the 10 best movies of 2026 so far that deserve attention. 10. Greenland 2. Migration begins years after the comet disaster and chooses to explore life after survival instead of repeating destruction. The Garrity family leaves the bunker and moves across a damaged Europe where communities exist, yet stability remains uncertain and fragile. Each step forward raises questions about trust, safety, and the possibility of rebuilding. The film spends time observing people rather than chaos. Small interactions carry meaning because survival no longer guarantees peace. Gerard Butler gives a restrained performance that helps the story remain grounded in family strain, exhaustion, and difficult choices. This sequel stands out because it treats survival as the beginning of a new chapter rather than the end of danger. The shift in tone naturally leads into something very different. 9. Cold Storage places its story inside a storage facility built over a former military base, where two employees discover that a dangerous organism has escaped containment. A former operative joins them, and the situation becomes urgent before the threat spreads outside the building. The film understands its unusual premise and allows humor to exist alongside tension. Confined hallways and sealed rooms create pressure that rarely fades, while the characters operate with limited information. That uncertainty keeps each decision unpredictable. The story remains engaging because ordinary workers face a problem far beyond their preparation, and the film builds entertainment around that imbalance. The movement from contained chaos to a more personal story feels natural when the list reaches 8. Shelter. Mason lives in isolation until he rescues a young girl during a violent storm. That moment disrupts the controlled life he created and pulls him back toward unfinished parts of his past. The narrative develops slowly, allowing viewers to understand Mason before danger arrives. People searching for him close in, which transforms the film into a pursuit story driven by responsibility rather than revenge. Action scenes remain grounded and direct, reflecting a character who acts only when necessary. Coastal landscapes reinforce exposure, and the emotional focus on protection gives the story weight that extends beyond action. Questions about responsibility continue in a very different setting with 7. Mercy, a near-future thriller built around a 90-minute online trial overseen by an artificial intelligence judge. Detective Chris Raven faces accusation for his wife's death and must defend himself within a system designed for speed and efficiency. The film unfolds through screens, recorded footage, and live evidence, creating a constant sense of urgency as time remains visible. Viewers watch the same information Raven sees, which strengthens tension and uncertainty. The story explores whether automated judgment can handle human complexity, and that question keeps the narrative compelling even without physical action. The idea of pressure shifting from systems to relationships leads directly into 6. Send Help. A private jet crash leaves a businesswoman stranded on an island with her secretary, someone she previously treated poorly. Survival removes the hierarchy that defined their relationship before the crash. Basic needs reshape interaction, though resentment remains present. Food, shelter, and cooperation become daily challenges, and each task reveals unresolved tension. The film uses isolation to focus attention on dialogue, body language, and shifting trust. Suspense grows from uncertainty about whether cooperation can last, which gives the story emotional intensity without relying on external threats. That focus on relationships carries forward into 5. The Wrecking Crew, where two estranged half-brothers reunite in Hawaii after their father's mysterious death. Their search for answers draws them into criminal activity while forcing conversations they avoided for years. The chemistry between the leads shapes the film's identity. Their exchanges move between irritation, humor, and reluctant support, which gives the story rhythm even when the plot slows. Action sequences appear regularly, yet the real interest lies in how these brothers respond to each other while navigating the investigation. The film leaves an impression because the mystery becomes a path toward understanding family tension rather than simply solving a crime. The list then moves toward darker territory with 4. 28 years later, The Bone Temple, which expands the rage virus world by examining what prolonged collapse has done to people. Infection remains part of the threat, though the story places equal focus on ideology, power, and survival choices. New groups emerge, and a discovery introduces the possibility of change for humanity. Characters operate in environments where trust feels uncertain and moral direction shifts depending on circumstance. Psychological horror replaces straightforward survival tension, and violence carries meaning connected to character decisions. The film stands out because it treats the franchise as an evolving examination of survival rather than a repeating scenario. That examination of trust continues in a grounded setting with 3. The Rip, where a group of police officers discovers illegal money that quietly alters their relationships. Suspicion grows before anyone openly acknowledges it, and small changes reveal fractures within the team. The film allows tension to develop through conversation, silence, and observation. Loyalty appears stable until personal interest begins influencing decisions. Performances remain restrained, which makes confrontation feel more significant when it arrives. The story remains engaging because it explores how quickly trust changes once temptation enters the picture. A shift toward isolation returns with 2. Iron Lung, a science fiction horror story that places a prisoner inside a small submarine exploring a blood ocean on a distant moon. The setting limits movement and information, which immediately creates discomfort. Claustrophobia defines the experience as the character relies on instruments, recorded instructions, and partial data while moving through an unseen environment. Sound becomes central to tension, and imagination fills the gaps left by minimal visuals. The film demonstrates how limitation can shape a memorable experience, and its independent production approach reinforces the sense of creative risk. The list concludes with 1. Crime 101, a heist story built on patience, routine, and perspective. A disciplined jewel thief conducts precise operations along the California coast while a determined investigator studies his pattern. Their connection forms through observation long before direct confrontation. The narrative focuses on preparation, timing, and mindset instead of spectacle. Moral boundaries remain unclear as both characters develop understanding that complicates pursuit. Careful pacing allows atmosphere to settle, and tension grows through anticipation rather than sudden twists. The film stands out because it treats crime as a psychological exchange shaped by discipline and perception. Across these 2026 movies, a clear pattern appears. Stories place attention on character perspective, smaller settings, and emotional consequence. Psychological conflict crosses genres, whether the story involves crime, horror, or survival. Sequels show willingness to evolve tone, while technology continues to influence thriller storytelling. This direction suggests audiences respond to clarity and intention even within large releases. Strong ideas, focused storytelling, and distinctive tone shape the films that remain memorable. The strongest takeaway from the best movies of 2026 so far is simple. Scale alone no longer defines impact. Films that choose a clear identity, invest in character, and trust restraint tend to stay with viewers longer. Many major releases still remain ahead this year, yet these titles already outline the direction cinema is taking. Crime stories feel more reflective, horror experiments with limitation, and survival narratives explore relationships as much as environment. Which of these 2026 films are you planning to watch first? And which ones deserve a place on your list? Share your picks in the comments and subscribe for more weekly recommendations covering the best movies and series worth your time.